In the peaceful galaxy, far beyond the reaches of human civilization, the alien factions were used to being the dominant force. They ruled the stars, their technology light years ahead of any known species. But today, something was different. A strange signal pulsed through the stars, echoing across the vast expanse of space. It was unlike anything the aliens had ever encountered. The signal was clear, rhythmic, and unnervingly persistent. It wasn't an emergency distress call or a distress beacon from a ship in danger. No, this was something else entirely. It was a message, but no one could understand what it meant. The alien fleets, the mighty forces that had once felt invincible, scrambled to track the origin of the signal. Most dismissed it at first, assuming it was just some anomaly or a glitch in the system. However, as the signal continued, a sense of unease began to spread across the galaxy. The leader of the Zorathian Empire, a powerful alien race known for their ruthless efficiency, was the first to take the signal seriously. General Klorak stood in the dimly lit command center, studying the data as it streamed in. His brow furrowed as the mysterious message repeated on the screen. "This isn't random," he muttered under his breath. "This is deliberate. But who? Or what is it?" He turned to his officers, who were as puzzled as he was. None of their ships had reported anything out of the ordinary, but the signal continued to pulse in the background, unyielding. General Klorak knew the importance of being prepared, but this was something beyond his understanding. Meanwhile, in the neighboring Karen Dominion, a powerful alien faction that prided itself on its secretive nature, leaders were having a similar conversation. The signal had reached them too, and it sent them into immediate action. Commander Thria, the most respected strategist of the Dominion, was pacing in her war room, her sharp mind already working on theories. "It has to be a trap," she said, her voice low, but with a hint of concern. "The timing is too strange. It's as if someone knows we are watching." But not everyone agreed. A few of the more cautious members of the Kakaran Council believed it was nothing more than an advanced form of communication. Maybe it was a message from a distant race, one unknown to the galaxy. But Thria wasn't convinced. She was a warrior at heart, and every fiber of her being told her that this was no ordinary signal. This was a threat. Across the galaxy, similar meetings were happening. Alien factions, all once secure in their dominance, found themselves on edge. The signal was coming from the farthest reaches of space, beyond their maps and into unknown territory. And yet there was something about it that felt different. There was an unexplainable fear in the air. What if this signal was a precursor to something far worse? What if the galaxy was about to face a new, unknown power? As the days passed, the signal only grew louder. General Klorak and Commander Thria were far from knowing what lay ahead. But one thing was clear. Something big was coming, and they would have to prepare for whatever it might be. The unknown sender of the signal was watching, waiting for the right moment. The galaxy would never be the same again. The signal had been echoing across the galaxy for weeks now, and no one had any clear idea of what it meant or who was sending it. The alien factions, already on edge, were growing more and more paranoid. Every moment that passed seemed to bring them closer to something they couldn't understand. Finally, the Zorathian Empire decided to take action. General Klorak, unable to ignore the growing tension, ordered a scout ship to investigate the source of the mysterious signal. His decision was met with mixed reactions from his officers, some hesitant to move forward without more information, while others were eager to learn what this new presence could mean. "Find out what's out there," Klorak ordered, his voice steady despite the unease that lingered in the room. "We must know what we are dealing with before it's too late." The scout ship, a sleek and fast vessel designed for reconnaissance, was quickly prepared for its journey into the unknown. The crew, hand-picked for their experience in navigating dangerous and unfamiliar territories, set off into deep space, following the trail of the signal. As they traveled further, they passed the familiar stars and planets they knew, only to enter a region of space that was completely unfamiliar to them. For hours, The scout ship's sensors picked up nothing unusual. The signal seemed to fade and pulse erratically, as if guiding them deeper into uncharted space. The crew kept their eyes on the radar, alert to any signs of danger. Then, just as they thought they had lost the signal, it appeared again, stronger than ever. Suddenly, the captain of the ship, a seasoned alien named Trosk, froze. His eyes widened as his hands gripped the controls tightly. In front of them, through the mist of stars and nebulae, appeared a massive shape, something so enormous that it seemed to dwarf every ship the Zorathians had ever encountered. It was a battleship, unlike anything the Zorathians had ever seen. Its dark, sleek silhouette cut through the void of space, casting an ominous shadow. The ship's surface seemed to shimmer and shift, as if it were alive. Its sheer size was beyond comprehension, far larger than any known vessel in the galaxy. The ship seemed to radiate an unsettling sense of power. "Captain, what is that?" one of the crew members whispered in disbelief. Trosk stared at the image on the screen, his heart racing. He didn't know what it was, but he knew one thing for certain. It wasn't anything they had ever encountered before. The ship seemed to pulse with energy, its weapons powerful and ready. It wasn't just a ship, it was a statement. "Return to base immediately," Trosk ordered, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and awe. "We need to report this." As the scout ship turned back toward the Zorathian homeworld, the crew could barely comprehend what they had seen. The size and power of the ship they had encountered were overwhelming. There was no mistaking it now. The mysterious signal had not come from any ordinary alien race. This was something new, something far more advanced than anything they had ever known. News of the encounter spread quickly through the Zorathian Empire. General Cloric's face grew grim as he listened to the reports. The aliens had seen something they had never imagined, a human battleship, an imposing force that had emerged out of nowhere. Cloric felt a chill run down his spine. He wasn't just dealing with a threat. He was facing a force that could change everything. "Prepare for everything," Cloric said quietly, staring at the holographic display of the battleship. "This is no ordinary enemy. We are dealing with something far more dangerous." The galaxy, once confident in its power, now stood on the edge of uncertainty. The unknown had arrived, and its name was human. The news of the human battleship's sighting spread like wildfire across the galaxy. The once confident alien factions, each with their own powerful fleets, found themselves in a state of chaos. They had all been content with their dominance, knowing that no one could challenge their power. But now, everything was different. The arrival of this unknown human force had shaken them to their core. General Cloric of the Zorathian Empire stood at the command center, his hands folded behind his back. The glowing screens around him displayed endless streams of data. The reports from the scout ship were clear. This human battleship was unlike anything they had ever seen. It wasn't just a ship, it was a symbol of something far more dangerous. The Zorathians had spent centuries perfecting their ships, yet they couldn't compare to the massive, powerful vessel that had just appeared in their space. "What do we know about them?" Cloric asked, his voice steady but filled with uncertainty. He turned to his officers. "They don't respond to our communications," one officer said, his voice strained. "We've tried everything. All we have are these recordings from the scout ship. The ship is far larger than anything we've ever encountered. We don't even know if they've noticed us yet." Cloric stared at the screen, deep in thought. The more he analyzed the situation, the more he realized that the galaxy was facing a threat unlike any other. The human battleship wasn't just a weapon, it was a statement. Whoever controlled it had the power to change the entire balance of the galaxy. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Commander Threa of the Terran Dominion was having her own meeting. Her mind was already calculating the best possible strategy. The Dominion was known for its stealth and cunning, but this human force seemed too powerful to be outsmarted. Still, Threa wasn't ready to concede defeat. If there was one thing she knew, it was that the best defense was a strong offense. "Prepare the fleet," she commanded. "We need to show them that we won't be intimidated. Let's see if this human force is as strong as their ship suggests." Her officers hesitated for a moment, knowing the risk they were about to take. They had never faced a threat like this before, and even Threa's strategic brilliance couldn't guarantee their success. But there was no other choice. The Terran Dominion couldn't afford to appear weak in the face of this new power. Elsewhere, the other alien factions were also preparing. The Drellian Federation, known for their scientific advancement, began to study the human ship from every possible angle. They sent their best scientists and engineers to analyze every detail they could gather, hoping to find some weakness. The scientists argued that if they could understand the technology, they might be able to counter it. The Galactic Union, a loose alliance of smaller alien races, was in turmoil. Some factions argued for diplomacy, hoping that peaceful negotiations could prevent a war. Others, however, believed that the humans were too dangerous to negotiate with. In every corner of the galaxy, the sighting of the human battleship caused fear, uncertainty, and preparation. The galaxy was about to change, and no one knew exactly what to expect. Back aboard the human battleship, the crew remained unaware of the panic they had caused. They continued to monitor the galaxy, ready for whatever came next. But one thing was certain: their presence had already altered the fate of the galaxy. The aliens had seen what they were up against, and the countdown to a new era had begun. The galaxy had been on edge ever since the mysterious human battleship had been spotted. Alien factions were scrambling to prepare for what seemed like an inevitable conflict. The Zorethians were not alone in their fear. Every alien power, from the mighty Terran Dominion to the smaller races of the Galactic Union, were bracing for something they didn't understand. In the command center of the Zorethian Empire, General Cloric stood before a massive holographic map of the galaxy. His fingers traced the path of the human battleship on the screen, tracking its every movement. The signal they had detected from the ship continued to pulse through space, unwavering and ominous. His mind was filled with doubts. There was no intelligence on this new enemy, no weakness, no history. All they had was the ship, and the fear that came with it. The time for waiting was over. Cloric had ordered a fleet to engage. It was a risky move, but if the Zorethians didn't act now, they'd risked losing their power to an unknown force. As the fleet prepared to launch, Cloric's officers worked quickly to send one last message to the humans, hoping for a peaceful resolution. The message was simple: "We demand answers. Who are you, and what is your purpose in our galaxy?" At the same time, across the galaxy, Commander Threa of the Terran Dominion had made the same decision. Her fleet, cloaked in shadows, was ready to approach the human battleship. Threa had long been a master of stealth and surprise, but this situation was different. The unknown enemy had already proven to be something far beyond what anyone had imagined. There was no going back now. "We will find out what they are made of," Threa said, her voice firm. She gave the order to engage, knowing full well that this confrontation could change everything. As the alien fleets closed in on the human battleship, the human ship's communication systems suddenly activated. The alien ships hesitated, confused by the sudden transmission. On the screens of their ships, a calm, confident voice filled the air. "We are humanity." The voice said, "You are in our way." The message was brief, but its impact was profound. The aliens stared in disbelief. What kind of response was that? There was no explanation, no plea for peace, just a simple statement of dominance. The human voice was confident, as if they knew the aliens would hesitate. It was as if they had anticipated everything. The Zorethian fleet, led by General Cloric, was the first to respond. His ships powered forward, weapons systems primed. But despite their overwhelming numbers, there was a fear in the air that none of the aliens could shake. The human ship didn't even flinch as the alien fleet closed in. It stood still in space, as if daring the aliens to make their move. "Are they mad?" one of Cloric's officers asked, staring at the screen. They're just sitting there. The tension was unbearable. No one knew how to react. For the first time in their lives, the most powerful alien forces in the galaxy felt vulnerable. The human battleship hadn't shown any signs of aggression, but it had sent a clear message. It was not afraid. The communication screens blinked once more. The human voice spoke again. "Leave now. You will regret it if you don't." The alien fleets, once proud and confident, found themselves at a crossroads. The humans had made their intentions clear. This wasn't a negotiation. It was a warning. The question now was, would the aliens back down, or would they test the strength of humanity's power? The galaxy was about to find out. The message from the human battleship echoed in the minds of every alien leader across the galaxy. "Leave now. You will regret it if you don't." No one had ever spoken to them like that. The calmness in the voice of the human commander sent a chill through the alien fleets, making them question everything they knew about power. The Zorathians were the first to retreat. General Klorak, who had been so confident just days before, now stood in silence, staring at the holographic image of the human ship. The once proud fleet had hesitated, not daring to make the first move. This was not what Klorak had planned. He had expected a fierce battle, one that would show the galaxy who truly held the power. Instead, they had been met with a cold, unmoving threat. "We've never seen anything like this," one of Klorak's officers said, his voice shaking. "What are they? How are they so powerful?" Klorak didn't have an answer. He had seen countless battles in his life, fought wars against races stronger than his own, but nothing had prepared him for this. The human ship was not like anything they had ever encountered. It was beyond their understanding, beyond their control. Across the galaxy, panic spread like wildfire. The Terran Dominion, once the most secretive and calculating of the alien factions, found themselves in turmoil. Commander Thria, known for her ability to read her enemies, was now facing an enemy she couldn't read. Her fleet had been ready to engage, but now they were unsure of what to do. The human battleship had made no aggressive move, but its presence alone was enough to send them into confusion. "We cannot let them think we are afraid," Thria said, her voice filled with frustration. "But we don't know how to fight them." The Drellian Federation, the galaxy's greatest scientific minds, also found themselves in a state of panic. Their most brilliant engineers were studying the data they had gathered, trying to make sense of the human technology. But no matter how hard they looked, they couldn't understand it. It wasn't just new, it was alien in every sense of the word. "This technology, it's unlike anything we've ever seen," one of the Drellian scientists said, his voice filled with awe and fear. "They must have advanced centuries beyond us." On the outer edges of the Galactic Union, smaller alien races, who had once believed they were protected by their larger allies, now faced the terrifying possibility that their alliances would not be enough. They had always relied on the strength of the greater factions to protect them, but now they feared they were on their own. "What if they come for us next?" one of the Union leaders asked, his voice trembling. "What if we are next in their sights?" For the first time, these races realized that they were no longer in control. The galaxy had always been divided, with powerful empires sitting at the top, but now everything had changed. Humanity had arrived, and with their arrival came the terrifying reality that the power dynamic of the galaxy was shifting. Fear took hold of the alien factions. What had once been a peaceful galaxy, with the most powerful species in control, was now a place of uncertainty. The humans, with their advanced technology and cold resolve, were a force unlike any they had ever known. The aliens didn't know what was worse, the possibility that humanity was too powerful to defeat, or the fear that they might not even have the strength to stand up to it. The galaxy was teetering on the edge of a new era, and no one knew which way it would fall. The galaxy had never been this uncertain. The alien factions, once sure of their superiority, were now caught in a web of fear and confusion. The human battleship's first message had sent waves of panic through every corner of the galaxy, and with each passing day that panic grew. But while the aliens scrambled to understand and prepare, humanity stood steady. The human fleet, though fewer in number, was more advanced than any of the aliens had imagined. General Clorek of the Zorathian Empire watched his fleet gather at the edge of his homeworld. The once proud Armada now looked weak and fragile compared to the human ship's power. His thoughts raced. How could something so small in number cause such havoc? They are not like us, Clorek muttered, staring at the holographic map that displayed the human ship's last known position. They don't follow the same rules. We have underestimated them. Beside him, his officers worked tirelessly, trying to analyze every bit of data they had gathered from the brief encounter with the human ship. But the technology was far beyond anything they could understand. Its design was sleek, its weapons formidable, and the ship's defensive systems nearly impenetrable. They seemed to know exactly how to strike at the core of our weaknesses, one officer remarked. Their strategy isn't based on numbers. It's based on intelligence, innovation, and power. Clorek clenched his fists. It was true. The humans had used no overwhelming force during their first encounter. They had shown no aggression, but it was the quiet certainty of their actions that struck fear in the hearts of the aliens. The mere fact that the human ship had taken no offensive action, but still commanded such respect was unsettling. Meanwhile, Commander Threa of the Kateran Dominion was observing the same information. Her fleet, a symbol of her people's pride, now seemed vulnerable in the face of this new power. She had built her reputation on her ability to read her enemies, to predict their movements, to outsmart them. But the humans didn't play by any rules she knew. We're missing something, Threa said, staring at the tactical data. We cannot fight what we cannot understand. Her officers agreed, their eyes troubled. No matter how many resources the Kateran Dominion threw into analyzing the human technology, they found themselves coming up short. There was always something new, something they couldn't explain. For the first time, Threa felt outmatched. The humans had introduced an entirely new way of war. In the Drellian Federation's research labs, their brightest minds were busy studying the human technology, but it seemed like an impossible task. Every time they made a breakthrough, they discovered a new layer of complexity. The materials that composed the human battleship were unknown to them. Its energy sources were far more efficient than anything they had ever encountered. It was as if the humans had unlocked some ancient secret, one that the rest of the galaxy could only dream of. This isn't just about firepower, said one of the lead scientists. It's their approach, their strategy. They think differently, and it makes them unpredictable. The Federation's leaders, too, were coming to a painful conclusion. Diplomacy might not work. The humans had shown no desire for negotiations or alliances. Instead, they had made their presence known with cold certainty. Humanity wasn't looking for peace. They were simply staking their claim to the galaxy. As word spread, many of the smaller factions in the Galactic Union, once hopeful for protection from the larger empires, were beginning to realize they were alone. The fear was setting in. What would happen when humanity turned its attention to them? The human advantage was clear. They weren't just skilled in war. They were masters of innovation. Their ships, their technology, and their tactics were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They didn't need overwhelming numbers. They only needed the element of surprise and the quiet confidence that they could and would dominate. The galaxy was now in the grip of change, and for the first time, the once dominant alien factions realized they weren't the ones holding the power. Humanity had arrived, and they were here to stay. The tension in the galaxy had reached a breaking point. The alien factions, once secure in their dominance, now faced a choice: stand and fight, or submit to the unknown force that was humanity. Fear and uncertainty hung in the air as every faction prepared for the inevitable. Each race had its strengths, but none could shake the feeling that humanity had something far greater than mere numbers on their side. General Clorek stood on the bridge of the Zorathian flagship, his eyes scanning the vast expanse of space. His fleet was ready. His warriors were eager to prove their strength. But in his heart, Cloric felt the weight of doubt. The human ship had shown no mercy in its silent, unyielding approach. Now, it was time for action. "We cannot let them believe we are weak," Cloric said, his voice firm. "Our empire has lasted for millennia. It will not fall to these humans." His officers nodded, but their faces were filled with unease. They knew the risks. They had seen the reports. The human battleship was not like anything they had faced before. Yet there was no turning back. They had to fight, or else they would lose everything. Across the galaxy, Commander Threa of the Kakaran Dominion prepared her own fleet for the coming battle. Her people were known for their stealth and strategic thinking, but against the human forces, she knew they might be outmatched. Still, she wasn't ready to give up. The Kakaran Dominion had faced enemies far stronger in the past, and they had always come out on top. "We will strike at the heart of their fleet," Threa declared. "We cannot fight what we don't understand, but we can still defeat them with our speed and cunning." Her fleet, composed of sleek, fast ships, was ready to make the first move. The Kakaran Dominion would strike before the humans could organize, hoping to catch them off guard. The challenge was immense, but Threa had never backed down from a challenge. Meanwhile, the Drellian Federation, although deeply focused on studying the human technology, had decided that the best course of action was to join the growing alliance of alien forces. They had learned enough to know that the humans were not going to go away quietly, and they feared their own chances in a one-on-one confrontation. With the galaxy's most advanced minds working together, they hoped to uncover a weakness that could be exploited. But despite all their efforts, the fear was clear. They were entering a battle they might not win. As the alien fleets assembled, the human battleship remained stationary, as if it were waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The human commander, a figure whose face had remained hidden from view, was calm and collected. His ships were smaller, but they were faster and more agile than the enemy fleets could have imagined. Every ship in his fleet had been designed with precision and purpose, and there was no question in his mind that the battle ahead was one he intended to win. The moment arrived. The alien fleets, having gathered in force, made their move, launching a coordinated attack on the human position. Hundreds of ships filled the space around the human battleship, firing their weapons with incredible force. The first wave of firepower from the alien fleets lit up the darkness of space, but the human ships didn't flinch. The humans were ready. Their shields held firm against the barrage, and their weapons struck back with unrelenting precision. Alien ships exploded in a shower of sparks as the human fleet cut through them like a blade through silk. General Cloric's heart sank as he watched his fleet's ships fall, one after the other. The humans had not only held their ground, they had dominated. The overwhelming power of their technology and the strength of their tactics left the alien forces reeling. "This is impossible," Cloric muttered to himself, his hands gripping the edge of the console. In the midst of the chaos, Commander Threa watched in shock as her own fleet was forced into retreat. The humans were unlike any enemy they had ever faced. They didn't just fight. They adapted, they predicted, and they crushed their opponents with an efficiency that left no room for error. The battle raged on, but the outcome was becoming clear. The human fleet was unstoppable. The galaxy, once ruled by powerful alien empires, was now on the brink of a new order. Humanity had shown them all that they were not just a new player in the galaxy. They were a force to be reckoned with. As the last alien ships retreated, the human commander sent out one final message. "This is your last warning. We are not here to negotiate. You will either accept our terms or face the consequences." The future of the galaxy had been decided. Humanity had won, and the aliens had no choice but to accept their new place in the universe. The era of alien dominance was over, and the age of humanity had begun. The aftermath of the battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The vast fleets of the once great alien empires lay in ruins, their ships scattered across the cold void of space. The Zorathians, the Kiterans, and the Drellians, all of them had underestimated humanity. Now, as their fleets limped back to their homeworlds, they realized that they had been defeated by a force they could neither understand nor defeat. General Clorak, standing before a holographic map in the command center of his flagship, stared blankly at the remnants of his once mighty fleet. Ships that had been built over centuries lay destroyed or heavily damaged. The Zorathians had lost their most powerful vessels, their pride and joy. The shock of their defeat still echoed in Clorak's mind. "We have been humiliated," Clorak muttered, his voice cold. His officers remained silent, each of them struggling with the same thought. How could they have been beaten so decisively? The human fleet, though smaller, had proven far more advanced, their tactics impeccable. No matter how many ships the alien fleet sent, no matter how much firepower they'd unleashed, the humans seemed always one step ahead. The overwhelming strength of their technology and the cold, calculated precision of their strikes left the aliens in a state of shock. In the Kiteran Dominion, Commander Threa stood on the balcony of her command tower, looking out at the stars. Her fleet, which had been known for its stealth and superior speed, had failed in every way. The humans had anticipated their movements and countered with ruthless efficiency. Even Threa, who had never been outwitted before, had found herself unable to match the humans' unpredictable nature. "They think differently," she said to herself, her voice barely a whisper. "They don't play by the rules." Across the galaxy, leaders of the alien factions gathered in emergency summits, trying to make sense of what had happened. The Federation's brightest minds had been studying the human ships, but their findings only confirmed what the battle had already shown. Human technology was far beyond anything the galaxy had ever known. The Drellian scientists had found no weaknesses. The humans had designed their ships to be nearly invincible. Everywhere we turned, they were already one step ahead. One Federation leader said, his voice filled with both awe and frustration. "We've never faced anything like this." Despite their frustration, the reality was clear. Humanity had won. The great alien empires, which had once been the rulers of the galaxy, were now on the verge of being pushed into the shadows. The humans had not only defeated them militarily, they had shattered their pride. The human commander, whose face had remained hidden throughout the battle, now sent a final message to the galaxy. It was short and to the point. "This is the dawn of a new era. The galaxy will now follow humanity's vision. Accept it, or face further consequences." The message was as cold and confident as the humans had been in battle. No negotiation, no peace talks. The humans were now the dominant force in the galaxy, and they made no effort to hide it. Across the galaxy, many alien factions were left with only one choice: accept humanity's dominance or risk complete annihilation. Some began to submit, begrudgingly, hoping that the humans would allow them to keep a small piece of their power in exchange for peace. Others, too proud to surrender, prepared for another fight. But the uncertainty of victory loomed large. In the days that followed, new alliances formed. Some alien races pledged loyalty to humanity, eager to avoid further conflict. Others, though, began to whisper of rebellion, unwilling to give up their power without a fight. But for now, the galaxy was quiet. The new order had arrived. Humanity, once an insignificant species on the edge of the galaxy, had proven itself to be the most powerful force in the universe. And the galaxy, as it had known it, would never be the same again. The galaxy had entered an era of profound change, one that no one could have predicted. After the brutal battles, the massive alien fleets lay scattered and broken, their once dominant power now shattered by a force no one had expected: humanity. The alien races, accustomed to ruling the stars, found themselves humbled, their pride and strength tested by a new and relentless adversary. Humanity's victory was not just a military one, it was a declaration. The message they sent out after the battle echoed across the galaxy: "We are not here to negotiate. We are here to lead." At the heart of the human fleet, the commander, whose identity remained a mystery to the galaxy, watched as the alien factions struggled to adjust. His expression was calm, unwavering. To him, there was no victory celebration, only the acknowledgement of the task that lay ahead. The galaxy was vast, and it would take time to assert human dominance, but the first step had already been taken. The first alien representatives to meet with the humans were those who had already begun to feel the weight of their defeat. The Zorethians, their fleet crippled, sent envoys to offer what they could. The Terran Dominion, with its stealthy, strategic warriors, also reached out, though their words were more reluctant. The Drellian Federation, the scientific minds of the galaxy, had no choice but to face the reality of their situation. They knew the humans were not the type to seek peace through weakness. They were conquerors, and they had come to stay. General Chlorek, though defeated, still held his position of power within the Zorethian Empire. His people had not yet surrendered, but it was clear that their strength had been greatly diminished. "What choice do we have?" he asked, his voice somber, as he gathered his officers in the war room. "We can either join them and survive, or resist and be wiped out." His officers remained silent. Deep down, they knew the truth of his words. The humans had demonstrated not just their strength, but their sheer willpower to dominate. There was no question now. Resistance would lead to more destruction, more defeat. Meanwhile, Commander Threa of the Terran Dominion found herself struggling with her own decisions. The Terran had always prided themselves on being the cleverest, the most strategic of the galaxy's warriors. But even Threa, with all her skill and experience, knew that fighting against humanity would be futile. "Perhaps it's time to let go of old ways," she whispered to herself, watching as the human fleets moved into the space once dominated by her people. The Drellian Federation, though a race of great intellect and science, found themselves at the mercy of the humans. Their greatest minds had failed to uncover any weaknesses in human technology. It wasn't just their ships that were advanced. The humans had mastered warfare in ways the galaxy had never seen. Their strategies were unpredictable, and their resolve was unshakable. The Drellian leaders had no choice but to acknowledge their defeat, hoping for the best in the face of such an overwhelming force. In the Galactic Union, the smaller races began to feel the weight of the new order as well. They had always relied on the protection of larger factions, but now they saw no hope in the future unless they aligned themselves with humanity. Slowly, one by one, these races began to pledge their loyalty to the human commander, fearing what would happen if they refused. The new era had truly begun. Humanity, once a small and insignificant species on the fringe of the galaxy, had now become its dominant power. Their victory wasn't just about military might. It was about their resilience, their ability to think beyond the ordinary, and their refusal to back down in the face of overwhelming odds. As the human fleets moved through the galaxy, they began to set their terms. The message was clear: we will lead. Follow us or be left behind. The choice was now in the hands of the alien races. Some would submit, some would resist, but none would remain unaffected by humanity's rise. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had come, and they were here to stay. The galaxy had changed forever. What was once a land of vast, powerful alien empires now lay under the shadow of humanity's rise. Their victory was undeniable, and the new order they had set in place began to take shape. The alien races, each with their own history and strength, were forced to either submit to humanity's rule or face a future of endless conflict. For many, the decision was simple. Survival was more important than pride. On the bridge of the human battleship, the commander, whose name was still a mystery to most, looked out across the stars. The war was over, but the work had only just begun. He knew that humanity's victory wasn't just about defeating their enemies. It was about establishing their place in the galaxy. And that would take time, patience, and a steady hand. "We've won the battle," he said quietly to his officers. "But now we need to win the peace. Our future depends on how we handle what comes next." His words were clear and decisive. Humanity had proven its strength, but the galaxy was vast, filled with different cultures, histories, and powers. The alien races may have been defeated, but the human commander knew that the hardest part of this conquest was yet to come, creating a galaxy that would follow them, not out of fear, but out of respect. Across the galaxy, alien leaders had already begun to take their place in this new order. Some, like General Clorek of the Zorathian Empire, had grudgingly pledged their loyalty to humanity. Others, like Commander Thria of the Kakaran Dominion, were still uncertain, but even they knew that resistance was futile. Humanity does not yield, General Clorek had admitted, as he stood in his war room, looking over the galaxy's new map. We may have lost, but our place in this new order will depend on how we adapt. We must learn from them. The Zorathians, once rulers of the stars, now found themselves part of a new galactic structure. Clorek knew that their survival depended on how quickly they could adjust to the human-led galaxy. The Kakaran Dominion, once the most strategic of the alien factions, now had to rethink their own place in the galaxy. The Karens were clever, but they had been outwitted by humanity's sheer innovation. They had no choice but to align themselves with the human-led order, no matter how difficult it was to accept. The Drellian Federation, whose minds had long been admired for their scientific advancements, also found themselves struggling. They had studied humanity's technology, but nothing in their vast knowledge had prepared them for the humans' ability to fight, adapt, and lead. Still, they made an uneasy peace with humanity, hoping that collaboration would benefit them in the long run. In the smaller corners of the galaxy, the smaller alien races had little choice but to submit to humanity's new rule. Some accepted it begrudgingly, while others, still bitter over the loss of their independence, began to plot in the shadows. Humanity, though, was not blind. They watched and listened carefully, knowing that they would need to keep a strong watch over the galaxy to maintain peace. The human fleet, though victorious, knew that their victory was fragile. They had established dominance, but that was only the beginning. They would have to carefully manage their power, balancing strength with diplomacy to ensure the galaxy remained stable under their rule. The commander understood that true peace would come not from force alone, but from trust and cooperation between the races. Humanity had won the war, but the real challenge was yet to come. Could they build a galaxy where all races could live together, or would the old rivalries resurface? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: humanity's place in the galaxy was now secure, and they would not be easily moved from it.